A very good morning. In today's class, we are going to see what is the principles of aerobiology. Before we go into the principles, first we'll know what aerosol is. Aerosol is a two-word. Aero means air or atmosphere. Sol means solution. So fine solid particles or liquid droplets suspended in the air is called aerosols. This aerosol is broadly categorized into natural aerosols and anthropogenic aerosols. The natural aerosols are the fog, mist, dust, forest exudates, and geyser streams. And the anthropogenic aerosols are the pollutants and smoke which is found in the atmosphere. These natural and anthropogenic aerosols includes the natural sources are aerosol sources are ocean, volcanic eruptions, dust storms, forest, grassland fires, grassland and forest fires, living vegetation, sea spray. Sea spray is nothing but in oceans you can see during it produces bubbles. These bubbles carries aerosols which is directly goes to the atmosphere. So those are called as sea sprays. And anthropogenic sources includes burning of fossil fuels, biomass burning, nitrate fertilizers, mineral dust from industrial activities. All these are the various aerosols which is found in the atmosphere. So you can this picturizes the various sources where the aerosols are generated and it is found released into the atmosphere and it circulates there and again it gets deposited into the substrates, various substrates. Here you can see the chemical aerosols like methane, volatile organic compounds, and nitrous oxide from various industries. Here you can see the garbage dumping sites where the bioaerosols are found. The pollen grains from the plants is one type of aerosol which gets into the atmosphere, which again a bioaerosol, and the various physical particulate matters which is generated from the dust, wildfire emissions, the smoke and the soot which gets into the atmosphere, which is called as particulate matters or the physical bioaerosols of PM25 and PM10 gets into the atmosphere. These are the various sources and the various bioaerosols found in the atmosphere. So this aerosol which is generated is broadly classified according to the spheres. So the lithosphere generates desert dust which forms the aerosols in the atmosphere, and the atmosphere consists of global warming gases like carbon dioxide and monoxide, chlorofluorocarbon which is found in the atmosphere, and hydrosphere generates sea salt. Then it transports the nutrients to the ocean again, which forms the bioaerosol and gets into the atmosphere. And in the biosphere you can see the various sources which generates the bioaerosols, as we saw the anthropogenic emissions from various sources which is from the biosphere, and this causes a serious health impact on the humans as well as animals, and it seriously affect the photosynthetic activity of the plants. So the bioaerosols are broadly classified depending upon their nature. They are of three types: the physical aerosols, which is of particulate matter 10 and particulate matter 2.5, falls under the physical aerosols. Chemical aerosols are the carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, nitric oxide, volatile organic compounds. All these fall under the chemical aerosols, and biological aerosols are the bacteria, fungal spores, actinomyces spores, fern spores, endotoxins, pollen grains, algal spores, plant cells, insect and mite fragments and its excreta, enzymes, antibiotics from biotechnological processes, mycotoxins and proteins which is found in the atmosphere are categorized into biological aerosols. So all these aerosols are found in the atmosphere. So it is very important to know the layers or the stratification of the atmosphere. So the atmosphere is stratified or it is categorized into different layers. The troposphere, which is just above the Earth's surface, that is called as troposphere, which is about 10 kilometers from the Earth's surface, forms the troposphere, where you can see the Mount Everest and the aeroplanes, passenger planes there. From 10 kilometer to 30 kilometer, that is 50 kilometer radius is the stratosphere. From 10 to 50 kilometers is the stratosphere. In this stratosphere, you can see the ozone layer. See, the ozone layer is found in between the troposphere and the stratosphere at an altitude of 20 kilometers to 30 kilometers. And in this layer, you can see the gas balloons and the jet airplanes flying there because the turbulence is low in the stratosphere. And next to the stratosphere is the mesosphere, where you can see the meteoroids burning there. And this forms a mesosphere, and this mesosphere goes up to 100 kilometers from the Earth's surface. And then comes the thermosphere. And after thermosphere, in the thermosphere, you can see the aura of light. That is the light from the southern and the northern hemispheres forms here, and this creates an aura that you can see in the thermosphere. And next is the exosphere. So some say that thermosphere is the last layer, and others they say there is one more layer called as exosphere, which is about 1 lakh miles from the Earth's surface, and the end of the border is not known. And the thermosphere, next comes the exosphere, and the ionosphere is not the layer. It is where the high energy or high radiation atoms are found in these layers. It is found in the mesosphere as well as in the thermosphere layer, that is called as ionosphere. So the sources of stratospheric aerosols. So more of aerosols is found in the troposphere. Here you can see the organic compounds, sulfur dioxides, which is found in the troposphere. So the troposphere is the region where you can see huge number of aerosols, physical, chemical, and biological in nature. And sulfur dioxide is a compound, it's a chemical compound which has the ability to reach the stratospheric layer. And the meteoritic dust is found in the mesosphere. This can come to the stratosphere and create an aerosol in the stratosphere. So the stratosphere is composed of meteoritic dust and sulfur dioxide dust from volcanic eruptions. So with this knowledge, we'll see how these aerosols are found, what is the pathway of these aerosols. So the aerobiological pathway goes like this. The source, from the source, the aerosols are released. Once it is released into the atmosphere, depending upon its size, density, and weight, it is there in flight. Okay, after its flight, it gets, due to gravitational pull, it gets deposited into some substrate. If the substrate is a human being, it causes respiratory diseases when it enters into the alveolar region. Then the substrate is the skin of a person, it causes rashes and skin infections. If the substrate is an animal, it causes diseases to the animal. If the substrate is a plant, it is going to cause plant diseases. So the impact is the disease which it causes when the substrate is susceptible. So this is the aerobiological pathway, which clearly explains the root of the aerosols and how it is being settled in and what impact it causes. So this is the picturization of the aerobiological pathway, which I said, and I have explained here about the spores. Once the spores are released from the source, it gets transported into the atmosphere. If the spore size is very less, it is, or the size is very low, or when the uh, weight is very low, it is there in flight for a longer duration, then due to gravitational pull, it gets settled to a substratum that is called as deposition or sedimentation. And once it is deposited, it causes an impact, it causes an illness when the substrate is susceptible. This is a picturization of the aerobiological pathway. So the dispersal mechanism. So there are various types of dispersal mechanism. The wind, rain, insects, animals, and human activities bring the aerosols into the atmosphere. Here you can see the fungi, which is dispersing the spores into the atmosphere. The dispersal of the spore is shown in this picture. This is the conidiophore and this is the conidium. So the conidiophore uh, gives, once it is matured, it releases the conidium into the atmosphere. So, and it is carried by the wind. So the rain also results in the dispersal of spores found from the surface. So rain is considered as the next dispersal mechanism of the spores or the aerosols. So insects and animals carries the spore into the atmosphere, and various human activities also brings the aerosols or the spores into the atmosphere. Here you can see the spore release from the gymnosperms, the pinus cone, and here again a gymnosperm releasing the spores. This is an angiospermic plant releasing the pollen grains into the atmosphere. So these are the various dispersal mechanism of spores into the atmosphere. So once the spores are released into the atmosphere, it is there in flight for few minutes to few seconds to few minutes. Then it comes to sedimentation. So this sedimentation is categorized into dry deposition and wet deposition. If the spores in the atmosphere loses its moisture due to overheating process, then it is called as dry deposition. When these spores combines with the moisture and comes and settles with the water, then it becomes a wet deposition. So there are two types of deposition or sedimentation. One is dry deposition or dry sedimentation. The next one is called as wet deposition or wet sedimentation. Then we go on to the circadian periodicity. So this circadian periodicity is mostly used to study the spore release into the atmosphere, especially the fungal spores. So there were a lot when the disease forecasting was done in Tika disease of groundnut. The Tika disease of groundnut was due to two different species of fungi, that is Cercospora arachidicola and Cercospora personata. The Cercospora arachidicola is called as early uh, disease or early infection, and personata is called as late infection. So, to study this, um, they went for a circadian periodic study. That is, they studied throughout the year, all the 12 months, they studied the spore, when the spore was released and when the spore was high in the atmosphere. This was studied using various samplers, continuous samplers, like Burkhardt continuous sampler was used for the study for the continuous assessment of the spores in the atmosphere. and when the spore was released, when it was at the peak. All these informations was found using the circadian periodicity. By this study, they concluded that the spore was released during the 10 and 14 hours of by the Arachidikola in the atmosphere, and in the personator it was 16 to 20 hours it was released in the atmosphere, and the spore count was very low during the midnight. So this picturizes, this is a picture to show the January 1st to 30. So 1 month it is, so like this every month, January, February, March, April, till 2 years or 3 years the study can be prolonged. So this is just I've shown for 1 month from January 1st to January 30th. Uh, the spore release, it was during the noon. It was very high. The release was during the midnight, and the spore count was very high in the atmosphere during the noon time. So this picturizes when the spore of the fungi was high in the atmosphere. Similar studies can be done for various like physical and chemical aerosols also. This is a study which picturizes the spore release, that is the biological aerosols present in the atmosphere. The similar type of studies can be done for the physical and the chemical aerosols in the atmosphere. So this is called as circadian periodicity. Continuously monitoring these pores in the atmosphere is called as circadian periodicity for 24 hours a day, and throughout the week and throughout the month and throughout the year, this spore study is made. So meteorology and aerobiology. So meteorology, how the aerobiology is affecting the meteorology. So these various types of aerosols, both natural and anthropogenic, gets into the atmosphere. These tiny particles, when they are combined or suspended in the air, so if it is a black suit or dark colored spores, it absorbs the heat and it gets warmed up there. And when it comes in contact with the moisture, you know that the atmosphere consists of humidity. When the moisture, when the particles come in contact with the moisture, it forms cloud condensation nuclei. This cloud condensation nuclei results in the rain, and again it comes back to the substrate into the planet. So this is a beautiful cycle which shows how the aerosols goes to the atmosphere and how it is again brought into the various substrates. So this also increases when these aerosols are found in the atmosphere. This warms up the earth and results in the when the greenhouse gases goes into the atmosphere, it results in global warming, and also it depletes the ozone layer. And when these particles, when they condense, it creates rain clouds and results in rainfall. So there is climatic changes because of these aerosols which is found in the atmosphere. So meteorological and aerobiological, we'll see about the impact of temperature. So when the spores are released into the atmosphere, how these spores are dispersed. When the temperature is very high, what happens to the fungal fruit bodies? It gets dried, moisture, it loses its moisture. When the moisture is lost, the fruit body breaks and it releases the spores into the atmosphere. So that is how the dispersal of spores in some cases in the dry condition happens. When the temperature is high, the dispersal of spores is very early. And once the spores are dispersed into the atmosphere, it the high temperature takes the moisture from the spore, and hence the spore is buoyant for a longer duration in the atmosphere. Next, this decreases the humidity. Since the humidity is also decreased, This increases the buoyancy of the spore in the atmosphere. And one thing should be noted is, since the moisture content of the spore is reduced, then the viability of the spore is lost. So that is an important thing which has to be taken, because the increase in temperature increases the buoyancy and the dispersal mechanism. And the negative thing is, the viability of the spore is lost. So that is about the impact of temperature on the aerosols, especially the fungal spores and the bacterial spores in the atmosphere. Fungal spore, bacterial spores, and the pollen grains, or any bioaerosols found in the atmosphere. So next is the impact of wind. So the incident wind, it comes, the wind can be a low wind, a greater wind speed, or ground boundary layer. When it is a low wind, it takes the aerosol at a lower rate. So if it is a greater wind, it takes the aerosol to a long distance. When it is a low wind, the aerosols are found within few kilometers of distance from the source. If it is a greater wind, it has the ability to carry the aerosols to a greater distance of miles, many kilometers. Okay, so 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers from one place, it can carry the aerosols to another place. So ground boundary layer is the aerosols which is found at a level. Okay, so depending upon the wind, the aerosols can be carried at various uh, levels at various regions. So next, the wind also has an impact on the, depending upon the shape and size of the uh, particles. Especially this, I have here shown a cocktail of the fungal spores in this picture. So when you see, the shape and size of each fungal spore varies. Okay, so this, when the wind carries these types of spores, definitely it is going to have a different impact on each type of spores. For example, the Alternaria, which is the biggest spore you see here in this Alternaria, Pithomyces, Eulocladium, all these are, and just see this, the Sporormiella, all these spores, they are bigger in size, and uh, when these spores are carried into the atmosphere, they are not going to stay there for a very longer time, because of their size and huge shape and the density. So because of the gravitational pull, they come and settle into any substrate which they are falling. Whereas when you see this fusarium, this the sickle shaped fungi, the fusarium, this has a different shape, altogether different shape. So it is sickle in shape. When it is carried to the atmosphere, when it is depositing, it floats like a boat and gets settled down once, and it does not stay there for a longer duration in the atmosphere. So all these spores which I have mentioned, which is bigger in size and which has a different shape, it is not buoyant for a longer time in the atmosphere when it is carried by the wind. It settles down because of its shape and its size. When you see these spores, that is the aspergilli and penicilli spore, we call them it as aspergilli and penicilli because we don't know from which source this spore is produced, whether from the aspergillus or penicillium. With the head only, we can make out whether it is an aspergilli or penicilli. So we call it as aspergilli or penicilli. We don't definitely call it as aspergillus and penicillium because we don't know the source of the spore. Both look alike. Both the spores look alike. Only by seeing the head we can differentiate. So we cannot see the head. It is found in the atmosphere. So these spores are circular in nature. So they are small, and these spores are buoyant for a longer duration. So when you take an air sampling in any location, whether it is an indoor or an outdoor, you can see the abundance of the aspergilli and penicilli in the atmosphere because these pores are smaller in size, their shape is circular, and it is buoyant for a longer duration. That is why we get the dominance of the aspergilli and penicilli when we monitor whether indoor or outdoor or any environment, extramural or intramural environment for that matters. So next is the impact of moisture. You know that the microbes, they live in moisture. What do they require is moisture is very important source for the microbial growth. So wherever the moisture is found, these microbes, they happily thrive there and colonize. Here you can see the tomato, beautiful fungal colonies on the tomato, and the onions. Again, it is rich in moisture. You can see the aspergilli, and here the chilies, the microbial growth, and this is a lemon where you can see the penicillial growth in this particular lemon. So moisture allows conducive, gives a conducive environment for the microbes to grow. First the bacteria colonizes, then the fungal colonizes. So first colonizer is the bacteria, then comes the fungi. Both colonize in the moisture condition. So this is a beautiful picture of sick building syndrome. We call it as sick building syndrome because the building is heavily infested with the microbes. You can see the visible colonies of microbes growing on the walls. These are the bathrooms where you can see the microbes, especially the cladosporium colonizing here. So wherever you see the moisture, so you know what bathrooms are more moist, very moist places, and that environment creates the fungi to thrive and grow. And you can see the visible growth of these microbes in this moisture condition. So moisture is an important source for the growth of the fungal spores. So thank you for patient listening.